Great question. And I'm going to preface it by, I think that everybody's own relationship with God is theirs. So I don't ever think that my views are what theirs should be and right. But I was raised in a household where there was a religion. My mom was Jewish. My dad was Christian, and they believed in religion and God. And I went to college and I was a messed up human. I became an intellectual atheist. And I'm like, everybody that believes in God is stupid. And then I got into rehab and I saw on the second step, it said, can't believe in a higher power, basically. And I'm like, no. I'm not going there. And then they were like, oh no, you know what? The higher power can be anything. It can be the group. You just have to believe that you're not everything. And I was like, oh, okay. So the process that I learned was this unfolding of really understanding my relationship with a higher power. And what really helped me was when someone told me that my first higher power dropped me. And that's why I don't want to believe in one. I was like, what do you mean? How do you know? And they're like, your parents. My parents, they're good people, but they're imperfect people. And I think a lot of us have that stuff. We all have childhood stuff. And so then the second thing I said was, I don't understand how God works, so I can't trust it. And he said, if your higher power is bigger than you, then how do you expect that your pea brain could actually understand it? And that gave me the freedom to surrender trying to control my higher power through understanding my brain. And it allowed me to start to experience my higher power through my actions, which I loved what you talked about, getting in motion, because I think we do so much up here. And so for me, that became like, I remember hiking with a friend and being like, hey, can my higher power be a woman? Because, I'm in the South. So, we have certain ideals down here. I just offended a lot of people. I don't know. And so he was like, yeah. I was like, could it be an animal? And they're like, yeah, it can be whatever you want. I'm like, can it change? Like, yeah. And nobody had ever introduced the concept of a higher power at that level of freedom. And that really connected to me. And so I started praying, and while I'd be praying, I'd be like making jokes about how stupid it was. But then after a while, I started to actually see how surrendering to this, even if it was placebo effect, this concept of something larger than me, was creating so many positive outcomes in my life that I couldn't explain, and so many synergies that I didn't have to like grit to make happen. Right. That I was like, dude, I don't need to understand God. I don't need to understand religion. I think there's a higher power, and I don't even know how to explain it, but I think it understands that we all think in terms of differences. So it created all these different religions so we could all find our own path to it. And I think that I just the only times in my recovery when I felt separate from my higher power have been when I've tried to understand my higher power to a degree that is more than when I surrender, good things happen.
Yes. There's so many bits in there that I love. And I think that you articulate that so beautifully. I'm surprised I haven't heard you talk more about that, actually. I don't want to shit on you, but you should.
No. So I appreciate it. So I'll tell you, like, that's been a challenge for me. That's been a big challenge. As I wrote my book, God isn't in the book, but he's in the dedication. I say he because it's convenient. But so my faith journey is non-religious. It's 12-step. It's this open-ended thing, but it's like anybody that knows me, it's at the center of everything. But what I'm trying to do with these three principles is I'm trying to do the beautiful thing that the people that created the 12-step program did. So the people that created the 12-step program, they took religion out of it so it was accessible to all. And I've seen atheists go through that process and be able to recover. And so I think that as valuable as it is to frame a higher power as God, as a religious, spiritual thing, I think simply the act of surrendering to something bigger, no matter what it is such a powerful thing that I chose to let people find that as they're wrestling through surrender the outcome. And in my dedication, it's the first thing in my book. So the first thing it says is, to my high power, who I choose to call God, I don't know why you guided me. Oh, I'm going to get emotional. I don't know why you guided me to leave you out of this book, but you're on every page. And I can tell you honestly that for me, learning how to speak God's will instead of my will, I don't know 100%. I think I know why, but I don't 100% know. I think it's so it's more accessible, but I chose to follow the path. And I'll tell you, a lot of my recovering addict friends were like really struggling with that decision. Because they're like, what, we learned the higher power thing. I'm like, I know, but leaders in business and stay-at-home parents that aren't addicts, they don't need as extreme of a solution. And so I need something that's simpler, that just tells them, what do I do right now in this business meeting with my kid? Like, what do I do right now? And I didn't want to try to bring in that philosophical debate. And truly it was an unconscious knowing. That's how I was guided. And I still feel really vulnerable about it. I'm kind of scared a little bit that like it'll end up being a big mistake, but it won't be if I chose not my will. So.
Right. Well, it's beautiful. And I'm glad you're sharing it here, at least. And it makes me think of, that going from, I want to call it like a narcissistic way of thinking about the things happening around you, or, first of all, life happening to you instead of for you, or you being the center of the universe and not having to consider anything else essentially, and stepping into this other place that's actually scary because it's now not in your control. If it's in someone else's control, if you're living from this other mindset of like, this is my box, I'm keeping it all in control. And when you step into that other place, which we call gray area on the show, step into something that there's a lot of fear around, you're going to be humbled by, because it's something that you can't really even consciously understand, probably as the, small self. And I like to call it, because I have a similar, I guess, upbringing as you when it comes to religion, where atheist father, a Catholic mother, went through a big stage where I was very angry at just religion in general, like being forced on me when I was younger, and all the fear that's forced on you through that. And then coming to a place where you realize that there is this thing that you are a part of that's much bigger than you. You're just a small piece of it, which is beautiful that you get to be a piece of it. And I like to call it God, or conscious collective, or collective conscious, or my subconscious, even if someone wants to still feel a little attached to the narcissism, my subconscious, because it feels like it's mine, but it's really like this collection of stuff that I can't grab and hold onto, and it's very fluid. But all of that, like you spoke to, I think does formulate the story we're living at the present moment. So when we can really clearly start defining it, and I think you do that through things like meditation and listening to your thoughts and letting the subconscious arise, or, tapping into the collective conscious, or all the words you want to use to define whatever the process is and how it's accumulating, we get to step into our highest selves, or the higher self, and I don't even like using the word higher because it sounds like we got levels to this, but
No, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah. So, and I think beautifully you spoke to the fact that humans see the world through differences, I think you use. And I like to say through contrast, like we have to have the darkness in order to see the light. And I think that goes for every part of life. And when you start realizing those small little concepts, it puts a lot of this into place. So you can label yourself, atheist, you can label yourself any religious title, whatever it is, as long as you're understanding that we're all in this thing together. I think that it creates the bond that we all need to have in order to make it through,
Absolutely. Thing. And the world's getting harder and harder. I mean, we need more and more genuine connectivity, and we need that. I really like the way you make it accessible, though, when you were talking about like the subconscious, because like people have varying levels of need when it comes to being able to relinquish that control.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, whatever concept allows you to let go, I think puts you into a place where you're able to manifest your best self.
Agreed. We can agree on that, Michael.
Dude, I feel kindred spirit. You guys don't happen to be 49ers fans, do you?
Hey, we don't watch. Oh, actually, don't talk to Jade about that.
I like Colin Kaepernick.
She's a Cowboys fan.
I like Colin Kaepernick.
Wait, you're a Cowboys fan? No.
No,
So,
no, I'm not. I'm not a Cowboys fan. My kid's dad is. I don't know why Mercedes said that, actually.
She's got the Cowboys cheerleader outfit. That's all I know.
Oh, there we go.
Now I know why you said that.
So, but not totally kindred spirits, because, a Bay Area boy, myself, totally 49ers fan. I don't even care if you like them or not. If you have anything related to the Cowboys growing up, we didn't like them, but now we hate the Seattle Seahawks. So
I honestly don't really watch any sports except for MMA at this point in my life. Sometimes some motocross. That's about it. So
as you get older, you have to kind of choose, don't you?
You got to choose. Yeah, you can't. You only got so much time,
Dude, I used to follow like every sport. Now it's like, dude, football, and that's like about it. And even then, I really question, like, am I just engaging in empty calorie intake? And this is like, I don't know. I don't think so, but I still question, like, is this worth the energy that I'm allocating to it? And that's where, when I was in treatment, they said, Mike, you're not going to stay clean if you ever intellectualize. So you're going to need to go ahead and just bring it down a little bit.
Let go and let be some of it.
Yeah.
No, I feel you on that. That's something I don't practice enough myself, to be honest, but working on it. All right. We've got a question from Dougie on Instagram who asks, how can I help a loved one who is an addict or who is dealing with addiction?
Man, so I get that. Thank you for that question. I get that question a lot, both online and offline. So I think we kind of, thanks to like intervention, we kind of know these things, but if you know the TV show Intervention. So enabling. People talk a lot about stop enabling an addict. I actually like to tell you what to start instead. Only enable their recovery. That's it. And so for people that have loved ones that are an addict, unfortunately, there are programs and resources for you so that you can learn how to surrender the outcome when it comes to their addiction. And the value of that is twofold. One, It allows you to give them the opportunity to experience what they need. The only thing that stops an addict, in my experience, is pain and consequences. So anything that we ever do to even soften that a little bit is like digging a grave. So the key is that let an addict experience their consequences and then always be there to enable their recovery when they're willing. And so the reason that we need to ask for help ourselves is they say addiction's a family disease. So the addict's addicted to the thing, and then the family and the loved ones are addicted to the addict's process. And that allows them to distract from themselves, and they get to numb the same way the addict gets to numb. The addict's using this substance, and they're using the addict's trauma to numb from their own pain.
Codependency.
Access these resources, and what that allows you to do is, yes, absolutely. And so there are 12-step programs specifically for codependency. There's 12-step programs for if you're an adult child of an alcoholic. They go on and on. But if you're able to take care of yourself, it's like the airplane oxygen mask. Then you're able to flourish as a human, and you are more capable of being there when the other person reaches out. But here's the thing that I'm going to say that is going to be really hard to hear. And this is the outcome that people need to surrender in order to be able to focus on what they can control. The odds are not good. People think it's all going to be a happy ending. And that's what actually leads them to wanting to, okay, I'm just going to give them a little bit more money, or I'm just going to help them with this. And the truth is that you can't control that it could be a very unhappy ending. You can control whether you optimize that it's a positive one, but it's a completely counterintuitive action that is required to make that happen. And it has everything to do with letting go and everything to do with not trying to control their process and start controlling yours. And I don't mean to say that with any lack of sensitivity, but I get calls all the time and I'm like, man, if you want your son or daughter to live, the best thing that you can do is not withhold their consequences and take care of yourself and let them know that you will enable their recovery when they want it.
I like that. And take care of yourself. Both my parents struggled with alcoholism, but my father was a heavy addict. And I, as an adult, chose Addicts and was just I was so codependent on them, trying to get them clean as a way of healing my childhood. So it took me a while to figure that out, that I was a codependent. And then I started reading books on codependency, and I knew there were programs. And that was when I stopped choosing Addicts, but I know that my codependency was enabling all of them. So,
but that's a level of work, Jade, that like you need to be so proud of, and so proud of as a mother, because you're breaking a cycle just in doing that. And so many people don't do that. So many people don't do that. And I'm not saying it's bad, but it's just like, kudos to you for changing that and for recognizing that and for doing that uncomfortable work. And as a result, you not only get to have a better experience on this earth, but so do the people that you love. Like people need to listen to that, because that happens a lot.
And it's when you are healing the codependency, because a lot of times I think, like you said, they have to go through pain and consequences to want to change. So we think sometimes like if we leave them, they'll get clean and we'll get back together, but that's staying codependent. So you actually have to do the uncomfortable work.
Yeah, I think it's such I can only imagine too, being a mother of a child that's dealing with an addiction, or I have a family member who is married to an addict and they have kids, like it's a whole, it becomes this,
I think that's
it's
the
a
hardest
family issue.
Yeah.
It's not one person. It's how do you, as the mother, put your child on the street essentially, because that's what's going to happen, in order to stop enabling. How do you wrap your head around that? And I think the for anyone listening, I think, the thing to remember is that it is way harder than anyone is able to describe in words, because it's an emotional process that you have to go through. And that's why the support that you're talking to, Michael, getting that support is 100% necessary, because you're going to relapse as the person who's not struggling with the substance addiction, but who's struggling with the codependent, issue of wanting to create a safe place for your child in this circumstance, or for your husband who's an addict, or whatever your thing is,
Yeah. I was only speaking from a partner standpoint. I cannot imagine if a mother's listening and her child struggles with addiction. My friend that I brought up earlier that helps people through addiction, he said that he has moms call him sometimes and say, I think I worry every night that my child's going to die because of their addiction, and that this will be the last time, that he even contacts me. So I can't even imagine. And so I only wanted to make sure to be clear that when I was saying you have to do the uncomfortable work, I was in no way trying to sound not empathetic to any parents. That's one of the hardest things that anyone could probably go through.
Well, this is tough stuff to talk about, because I have a tendency and I don't know if it's, me being an addict and not liking emotion, although I feel like I've really developed it, but I have a tendency to jump right into the solution, and I have a tendency to skip the empathy part. It's only when I have space and time. What?
Mercedes does that too.
Yeah.
Well, and I learn a lot, especially having a daughter and all that stuff. I'm learning different ways to relate. And I think that I'm also so desensitized sometimes to some of this stuff. I'm not completely, but I see it all the time. And I have always said, I have sponsees. I know what it's like to detach from somebody's process and know that it's going to risk a negative outcome. And I never realized until I had my daughter and I stared at that beautiful little being in the bathtub that couldn't, lift itself up if we weren't, there doing it or had the little thing. And I realized that this isn't about the odds anymore. And it's not about the process. It's about Amaret. And when it's no longer about statistics and odds and do this right thing, and it's about that one person, I'm only a year into being a parent, and I can't possibly imagine. I know I can't relate to what my parents went through, and I know I can't relate to what a parent goes through. It doesn't mean that the work is any different, but to what Mercedes said, I think it's recognizing that just like the addict is suffering, they don't need to. If you're suffering because you have a loved one that is having an issue, you do not need to suffer on your own. There are resources and people that will rally around you and help share. Pain shared is pain lessened. It's not completely lessened, but you can get the help that you need. And if you're sitting there and you're looking at the loved one, you're saying, oh, you really need help. If you just put the mirror in front of yourself, you're the person that you can help. And in doing so, you actually put yourself in a better position to help that person. But that doesn't mean that it's easy. That's why if the 12 steps alone were to got people sober and clean, we wouldn't need sponsors.
Right.
We wouldn't need meetings. Like we just, hey, here's the book. It's an online course. See ya. Like you need other people that have been through it. And so like I have this list of all these people that I know that are parents of addicts. So when I get that call, I send them to these friends because they love hearing from the addict that's been clean a long time. But no, I can't imagine what it's like to be that parent. And knock on wood, I hope I don't. But I've got a little bit of time to worry about that. But
Yeah,
it's a tough situation.
Yeah.
One that people are facing more and more. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I wanted to ask about your thoughts on psychedelics and plant medicines specifically, because I know people who actually used things like ayahuasca in order to overcome their alcoholism. I have one friend who his marriage would have ended, and then he did ayahuasca, and he became his wife and saw how he acts when he drinks, and he felt her emotions and that she wasn't just trying to control him, and he stopped drinking like that after that experience. Because it's the way I know that there's rehab centers too that use plant medicine because it's like it rewires your brain with the addiction. And then I also feel like with the other part of your work, it uncovers our truth and is potentially, a catalyst to living mask free. So I was curious your thoughts on that. And I also, as I was asking this question, I remembered that I had a partner that he struggled with alcoholism, and I was so angry at him for so long because I felt like he had kind of abandoned me in the relationship, and he wouldn't give up alcohol like my father didn't. And I became him while on ayahuasca, and I felt his
Despair.
a despair, but his disappointment would be the word. He was just the most disappointed man. Like I was overwhelmed with disappointment, and I just wanted to get away from that feeling. Like I would have done anything. I was like, get me out of here. I don't want to feel this. And then alcohol like poured into me, and I was numb, and I was relieved, and I was just like, oh, thank God I'm not feeling the disappointment. And so that was the first time that I understood, not that I'm, saying, okay, yeah, just keep doing it. But that was the first time that I understood like how it's just running away from feelings. And I couldn't grasp it before, because before it was like you said, kind of the lack of empathy, get to the solution. And this time it was like the first time that I thought, you just don't want to feel that ugly feeling that I couldn't handle for 5 minutes, So anyhow, I was just curious your thoughts on the use of psychedelics.
Yeah. So I've been clean for a while. I don't even know what you're saying with the iOS.
Oh, ayahuasca. Street name would be like DMT, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah. So, man, I would say just generally speaking, any instrument that develops empathy is probably very helpful. I think in general that allows us to see other people's perspectives and relate to the world. And then any mechanism that allows us to improve ourselves is really helpful. And this is all my prefacing is because I don't know what I think about that, honestly. I haven't really studied it. I don't have a lot of people that really talk about using it in a medical way or in a therapeutic way. What I do know is in the 12-step community, at least my personal experience is, sometimes, we find this thing that works for us. So here's what I would tell you, like being a 12-step person, I would be like, oh, that's an addict shouldn't do that. That would be my thought process. At the same time, I also know that in the process of becoming clean, I was taught that the only person that could determine if they're an addict is the addict. So it would be arrogance for me to say what somebody should do. And then I remember when I had about 4 years clean, I had two sponsees that both left the program, that I'd worked through step work. I knew all their horrible stuff they had gone through, and they stepped away from the program, and they both chose an alternative method for recovery. And I remember calling my sponsor and being like, they're wrong, like the self-righteous, narcissistic, like they're wrong. I found the way, you have to do my way. They're wrong, they're stupid. And my motivation was, I loved them and I was scared for them. And he was like, dude, you learned how to be open-minded in this program, that you are not God, that you don't know all, right? So how do you know what's best for them? So what I would say is that for me, I don't know what's going to be most effective to help people in different circumstances, but I have seen addicts use other methods to recover. Now, the only method I've seen that works consistently is the 12-step program. And even then the success rate's pretty bad. That's usually because addicts don't follow directions, not because the program doesn't work. But that being said, if there are cases where, I don't care what it is, whether you're talking about a psychedelic or whether you're talking about someone talking to a teddy bear, I don't know why I made that up. Maybe I'm surrounded by my daughter's toys and all that kind of stuff. But if that helps you in your journey to make better choices and to think differently in a way that helps you, like, I'm all for it. And I'm not a scientist. So that's a really long-winded way of saying I don't really know, but I wanted you to know the thought process behind it, because it's I think the most important thing is that I think a lot of times we find a solution and we want to club everybody over the head with that solution. And I would try to be really careful in recognizing that I don't know what's best for everybody. And I encourage anything that's working to be something that is supported and grown.
I like that.
Is that the longest non-answer you've ever gotten? It's got to be. Like, I set a record of some sort.
I don't know. All I do is literally talk through thought process that lead us to nowhere. So no, I feel like that was right on target.
I'm enjoying the heck out of this. Like, you guys are clearly like present and engaged and you really care. Like,
thank you.
It's just the thoughtfulness that you have in the platform, in the way you're leveraging your platform, is something that's really, really, really awesome. And then just like to hear the way that you're thinking about life on life's terms is something that I think more people need to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, there are a few short questions we like to ask everyone who comes on the show. So that's how we'll wrap up this episode. So first off, if you could hug your younger self right now, what would you say?
I've actually been asked this question before, and so I had to think about it. Here's what I would say. I would say, you're about to go through some of the darkest times in your entire life, but it's going to be worth it. And the light on the other end will be something that you couldn't have dreamed. And everything that you're going to experience between now and then over the next 5 years is going to be so painful, and you wouldn't have it any other way.
How old were you?
17.
17. I like that. That was something we all probably needed to hear too, because I think that's a turning point for a lot of us.
If you could have the whole world read one book, which would it be?
Well, I think I already showed my card on this one a little bit, but Brené Brown's The Gifts of Imperfections and Daring Greatly, I'm going to cheat because I see them as one big book that needs to be read. That book, I worship her a little bit unhealthily.
So you've seen her Netflix special?
I actually have not. We swore off Netflix at the house. So I'll tell you, swearing off Netflix
I'll give you my
house
password so that you can watch
so
it.
Painful.
It's so good.
So I could, because someone showed me the trailer and I'm like, that's my girl. And they're like, who is she? I'm like, you don't know who she is.
It's so good. I've seen it dozens of times and I cried even.
I've got it. I want your login because I want to watch it. I promise I won't misuse it. But like, I'll go do speaking engagements where I'll be like, so who here knows who Brené Brown is? And sometimes like nobody raised their hand.
Wow.
Sometimes everybody does.
Yeah.
And my heart when they don't know. But her book, Gifts of Imperfections specifically, and then Daring Greatly, it was when I was the CEO of my startup, and it was a fast growing company. And I really wanted to lead in a way that nobody was modeling for me with my vulnerability. And then specifically using my 12-step program as a way to build my culture at my company, as a way to think about my growth as a CEO. And I got shamed a little bit. Well, I probably shamed myself, but I got called naive, and I got called that I didn't know what it meant to be a real CEO. And so I felt really insecure about the path that I wanted to forge. And it was when I read her book that I said, no, I can choose to take this thing over here and apply it. in a way that most people think is not cool. And she's the one that gave me permission. She's the one that gave me the language and the way to think through what is being true to myself. And so like Gifts of Imperfection really helped me with that. But then Daring Greatly, I was like, man, I'm supposed to do this. And that was 2011 or 12. And so 7 years later, you know, that's like the centerpiece of my entire, I'm carrying this message that was really born out of reading that book. So if I haven't sold that book to you by now, you need to go get it and read it, because it is a game changer. Yeah. So anyhow, I can keep going, but.
No, we love Brené Brown. Trust, that's one of our own personal favorites. So right on with that. Cool.
I gotta see Netflix spec.
Yeah, you
got. Listen to her Audible book,
so
and she's so funny, and she practices what she preaches. That's what's so beautiful about it.
I discovered her through a TED Talk too. I feel like, I don't know if it's just me like projecting my own stuff onto others, but I feel like the podcast community, and this is also like a big stereotype, but a large part is like the Brené Brown or TED Talk watcher, you know, like that's kind of their jam, is they're looking for information or they're looking to self-help and self-grow. Love you, fam. All right. So if you could whisper one phrase to everyone on the planet, what would it be?
Whisper one phrase. Okay. Do I have to actually whisper it when I say it?
No, we just don't want you to yell it.
That the worst thing about you can become the best thing about you. And maybe it already is.
So hard to believe that.
Sounds like a pastor. Turn your mess into your message.
Yeah.
You know, being an addiction, being a drug addict, that was absolutely the worst thing about me. And I was raised that there was a tremendous amount of shame and all that. And now, you know, I don't think when I do my prayers, I don't think my higher power for recovery. I think my higher power for addiction, because it's walking around with a loaded gun pointed at my head that forces me to practice my program, that continues to make me seek the things that you guys bring on this podcast that we talk about here. If I didn't have that loaded gun pointed at my head, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now, and I wouldn't be worth anything to my wife and my daughter. And so it's what I'm grateful for.
That is something I wanted to ask you, is if you still live with the fear of, you know, heading back into relapse or of addiction.
Normal question. So no, I used to. So my first year, I thought that, this is going to sound crazy, I thought that a beer or a pipe was going to jump me in an alley somewhere and force itself down my, you know, into my body somehow. And so I remember being at a supermarket and thinking that if I picked the wrong cereal, I was going to relapse. Don't even ask me how I got there, but it was crazy. And so it was something that I was scared of. But, you know, once I got 10 years, a lot of the old timers had told me that, you know, a lot of people relapse in the first year. A lot of people relapse going from 1 to 5. And even from 5 to 10 is a really hard time, because people get all their stuff back and they get distracted. But if you keep doing what you've been doing for 10 years, it's habit. So like, I go to my home group and I got 5 sponsees and I do all the stuff. It's my life and I enjoy it. And it allows me to deal with life on life's terms. I'm not sitting there talking about the drugs. So I don't worry if I were to stop. My wife and I talk about this all the time. I don't worry about relapsing. I worry about becoming a human that sucks. And then I worry about being connected to the people around me and my higher power. And I think that I would start to do addictive things, either become an ultra marathoner or become a wicked gambler or something to kind of deal with the life on life's terms. And I do worry that eventually that would take me back. If I'd stopped doing this stuff at 5 years, I probably would relapse within a year, if not sooner. But I think at this point, it would take a long time. But nobody's impervious. And what would happen is I would generate so much collateral damage doing those things that eventually I would look for the thing that I know absolutely will make all the voices stop and all the pain stop. So I stay vigilant, frankly, not out of fear though, because I'm not worried about that. I stay vigilant because to me, it's the best platform for thriving.
Absolutely.
That's really good.
It makes me feel, for some reason this comes up, so I'm going to say it. Someone who gets in like a major accident, let's say, and they become, you know, unable to use their legs or something like that, something super traumatic that happens. And now they have, their life is turned upside down because of course they've been a human who's been able to use their legs and all the things that comes with that forever. And now they got to figure out how to acclimate to this. And if they maybe have a tendency to go to substance to help them cope or feel better, I can see a situation like that really being like, okay, what's it all for now? And becoming so hopeless that they choose this addiction again, and they choose this substance that's going to make that all go away. And I don't know how you walk someone out of something that's that traumatic, or how quickly you can, or if you can save somebody who's, you know, got this tendency to go to that place. And I don't even know why that's coming up in me, but it just,
You brought it up.
Yeah. Do you have anything that comes up for you? And bring up a circumstance like that extreme?
So without having gone through that circumstance, I think it's always easy to pontificate on what's possible when you haven't gone through it. So I want to acknowledge I haven't gone through that, but I have thought through that kind of stuff, and but more importantly, I've witnessed it in recovery. And what we're taught is it's an inside job, and that our satisfaction in this world is going to come from what we do internally, not externally. And so I've seen people dealing with pancreatic cancer, dealing with all kinds of terrible, terrible things where they're living in the hospital. And I see that the ones that think of recovery as a way to not use drugs, they're the ones that suffer the most. But the people that see recovery as a way to thrive in life, that's actually what helps them get through those things. I've seen people lose their children. I've seen people lose their spouses. I've seen all kinds of terrible things happen, and it's the coping mechanism. Because I had a spiritual mentor that one time told me, because I was really grateful. I didn't know how to deal with the success after I sold my company. Like I was like embarrassed and I didn't know what to do. And he was like, have you celebrated it? I was like, no. And he's like, well, here's the deal. One is paralyzed and someone wins the lottery over a year, they're going to end up at the same level internally. And I think there's something tied in there around the hedonic treadmill and all that kind of stuff. But I've learned for myself that, you know what, I have so many blessings today with the wife and daughter and you know, building a platform, not like this, but trying that, you know what, some of my happiest moments were when I was in the halfway house sharing a 10x12 room with two other dudes that like were really rude and talking to their girlfriends on speakerphone while I was trying to sleep. Like that was like peace for me. So I've learned that the peace and the happiness comes internally. Now, I don't know what it's like to deal with that circumstance, but for just this one addict, I have no doubt that the thing that's got me the last 17 years would be the thing, how to thrive in that circumstance. Easy to say though.
No, but I mean, like you said, it's a matter of putting it into practice so much that it becomes you, you know, it's a part of you, and it's just second nature. It becomes almost your new comfortable, you know, it's like going to your new job for the first time. This might be a really, really subtle example of this, but going to a new job that really seems a little out of your league, you know, a little higher over your head than what you might be actually qualified for. And you show up and then you go on your first day and you're like, whew, I think I got through that. You know, no one saw through my mask or whatever. And you go on your second day and you do the training and you get through the training, and then you're convincing yourself little by little that you can do this thing. And then at the end of a year, you're like, you know what? Not bad. They actually offered me a raise or whatever the case. And eventually you've convinced yourself that you are this person now. You are actually 10 years later a master at it, and it's become a part of you. And now you are whatever the original job you signed up for. So it's almost a little fake it till you make it. So it's like wearing a mask in a sense. I don't know. I feel we're so contradictory.
No, I'm with you. Like this stuff, like we have an anonymous program. So it's like you put on a mask to take off a mask.
Yeah.
Like there's all kinds of interesting
That is interesting.
Dynamics.
Yeah.
One thing you said though, in my book, I end it with a story called The Tale of Two Divorces. And it's about the year in which I had to divorce my wife, not my current wife, divorce my wife and my business partner. And I lost my company like all in the same year. And the reason that I tell that story is it's the year I stopped practicing everything that I teach and everything that I learned. And I thought that if I could just fix all these things around me, it's not like losing the mobility of my body, right? It's not like, but it was massive. Like I didn't know where I was going to live. I didn't know I didn't even know if I was going to be able to keep my dog. Like it was crazy. And when I continued to focus on all this external stuff and the wife and the business and the partner, like I was so miserable. And then finally, like someone was like, dude, you just got to surrender, dude. Like do what got you here. And I went back to doing this stuff. And then I was able to kind of detach from the outcome of all these things. It all worked out pretty well. It wasn't perfect, but it all worked out pretty well. But like, I still remember staying at my old sponsor's house when I didn't have anywhere to stay and thinking that that was a beautiful moment in my life that I really enjoyed, not because there were great things going on around me, because I remembered how to practice this stuff. And so that might be a tried example too, but like, I think that might be a little bit relatable to some people. And I just think that if you learn to surrender and do uncomfortable work, anything's possible.
Yes. It's like a little religion in itself. I love it so much.
I like it. I feel like we came full circle.
Yeah.
in the episode, like it was planned.
You do, because I feel the place. So as long as you feel good about it.
Yeah. Michael, where can we find you online? And also where can people find your book?
Thank you so much for asking. So I have a website, michaelbrody-waite.com, but because that's a mouthful, I actually set up something simple for your audience and a gift for your audience, because that's like what you do with podcasts. And so if you text mask free, all one word, to 336 777. Not only will I send you my information, but I will send you my mask assessment that's on my website for a fee. But anybody
That's so
that
cool.
comes through that card, through that word, gets it for free. And it helps identify masks and all that stuff. And obviously it's great for me getting my word out. And then if you want to buy the book, it's on Amazon right now for pre-order. And if you do the pre-order, you get the audiobook for free. And so just go on Amazon and put Great Leaders Live Like Drug Addicts. I don't think there's another book quite named like that.
Oh, it's the best name.
For worse.
Yeah, Great Leaders Live Like Drug Addicts. I'm so excited to read it too. You're amazing. As I've already told you before we started this, I'm a huge fan of your work, and I am just thrilled that we got you on the show to speak your magic into our listeners' ears and into our ears. So thank you so much for the work you're doing, for being vulnerable enough to live mask-free and to show the world that that's a possibility, and for being such a light in that way.
Thank you guys for the same. It's been an honor to be here, and I've so enjoyed it. You guys are beautiful. And using my definition, I love you guys. It's been great.
Cool. So good.
I haven't read it yet, but I feel like your book's going to blow up.
I hope. I'm a little scared, but I'm scared that it won't. I'm scared that it will. But
Elizabeth Gilbert says Elizabeth Gilbert is like,
the TED Talk's already impacting so many people.
Yeah.
What did you say about Elizabeth Gilbert?
Oh, I love her TED Talk about writing, but she says in that TED Talk, I think, about how like even when she gets a book that's like on New York Times bestseller, she doesn't enjoy it because she's like, well, what if I never write another good book? Or what if nothing ever lives up to this moment? And
contrast, yeah.
So maybe you'll enjoy her. Yeah.
I need to watch the TED Talk, but all my friends are like, okay, so you didn't really enjoy the first company. You didn't necessarily enjoy when you did all the cool things at the EC, and this is your life's work. So you're going to have to freaking enjoy this one, and your daughter's watching. So what do you want her to learn?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so I'm going to try. So you know what? This is like, I can't tell how grateful I am. I'm grateful for the opportunity to carry the message, but you guys are just so thoughtful, and I'm just going to keep recycling compliments. But I am really touched by how you are spiritual warriors. I really am.
Thank you. All right.
I really want to see his book blow up, and his message is just so pure.
It's so clean. And it's just so crisp. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the thing, because it's truth. It's simple,
Yep, exactly.
It's just the simple truth.
I love it so much. I know our audience will resonate with this, but both you and I, Jade, have a lot of, I guess, history with addiction in our families.
Yeah.
And so this topic and having someone here who can speak directly to it because he's lived it is so, I just hope it reaches so many people, not just the people that are maybe dealing with addictions in themselves, but also the family and the people, on the sidelines that we don't even realize are being affected the way that they are. I hope that they gain a little bit of perspective or insight or something that makes the journey a little more easy.
Yeah, because it's such a heavy topic, but this felt hopeful at the same time. So yeah.
What's your magic for us today? Which magic?
So I was trying to figure out how to do this magic trick, because I don't know that like people struggling with alcoholism would openly click on this episode, because like he was saying, addicts don't really, or people struggling with addiction don't really probably want to deal with it right now unless they're in the process of overcoming. But I also think though that like, just because you're not an addict or because your life isn't being destroyed by a substance doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that like, so I feel like a lot of people, if they don't really, I messed up, John.
That's okay. Let me just say this piece again. So what magic do you have for us today?
Yeah. So I was trying to figure out how to do this magic trick, because I know that maybe not like the typical person struggling with addiction or trying to overcome addiction may click on this episode because they might still be like knee deep in it. But I also know that just because you're not addicted or just because it's not controlling your life doesn't mean that like it should be in your life. I think the other day it was like, you not wanting to drink is good enough reason for you to like give it up. It doesn't have to be like, oh, well, it's ruining this for me. Or it can just be like, that you don't feel your best the next day, something like that. But I remember also I was surprised at when I read like the typical alcoholic drinks 5 drinks in a couple of hours or 15 drinks a week, because I have so many friends that they drink 15 drinks every weekend and they don't consider themselves alcoholics because it's like, that's just their weekend. That's them cutting loose. That's them. And it's, so I guess the term would be like a functioning alcoholic almost, you know? And so I think a lot of us, so it's 15 for men, it's only 8 for women. I know so many women that have 8 drinks on the weekends because they go to dinner, they have 4 or 5, they have a couple glasses of wine at home the next night.
I guess you're right.
Yeah. So I mean,
I just get so full off of like one drink. I don't know how, but I think it's just a different mindset on the whole thing anyway.
I mean, when I have dinner with a girlfriend, I typically, she'll order 3 or 4 drinks, I feel. So, I mean, having 8 in a week is considered alcoholism according to, I don't remember what this, I think it was alcohol.org, to be honest, I think was the link. But yeah, so it's surprising because I feel like a lot of people, drinking is such a normal part of their life,
right?
And a part of their social, how they bond and how they have social encounters, that they don't realize that it is actually like functioning alcoholism. I think we tend to think of, well, I'm not an alcoholic because like my life is fine. I'm not suffering, you know? So anyhow, if that was something that like, when you heard that, if you were like, I do, because I feel like maybe people who are listening to this are either long-term listeners or they listened to it, they clicked on it because they know someone who may be struggling with addiction. And so, but if that resonated with you, like maybe I do drink more than I realized.
That's a good point.
Yeah, there's some little things that I put here that can just help you cut back if you're realizing that you drink more than you
want to.
Yeah, or if you don't, but you just have always wanted to cut back because you know you don't feel good. So,
or the calorie content for that matter.
Yeah, there's so many reasons.
There's so
skin.
Okay, your liver, I don't know.
It's a known carcinogen.
Pretty obvious reason. It's poison, but whatever.
Yeah. Anywho. So the first thing is put it in writing. Either put it in writing or like announce your goal to somebody, because that gives you this feeling of like having something to be accountable to, you know, and then set a drinking goal. So when you heard that, yeah, I have 14 drinks or I have 8 drinks if you're a woman, set a drinking goal to, you know what, I'm only going to have 3, like maybe cut it in half so that you're at least not meeting the quota of being an alcoholic, right? That might feel better. And then maybe keep like how people who are trying to eat healthier, they keep a food diary. As cheesy as it sounds, maybe keep a diary of your drinking. And I know if you're having 15 drinks, you might not remember how many drinks you had, but you know, just maybe try to keep a diary of it. Don't keep alcohol in your home. This is a big one for me. If someone gives me a bottle of wine and I take it home, I'm going to drink it. And then I'm not like happy that I did. So don't keep alcohol in the home. That sounds like a given, and then for a tip for drinking less when you're out, if you are the one that tends to order multiple drinks, this sounds so silly, but what I was reading is just drink slowly. Like so many people, they like, it tastes good. So they just chug it. It tastes so good, you know, but the big thing that they were saying is sip your drink and never drink on an empty stomach. Choose alcohol-free days. I know for me, my addiction, I don't know if, I guess addiction might be the right word, but the thing I struggle with is always getting on social media to like distract myself or to tune out maybe. So I've set myself screen-free days, and it's more days of the week than I'm on screen. So maybe try that, having alcohol-free days. And then of course, watch for peer pressure, because I know personally for me, I've had so many friends that went sober and they've announced it on Facebook, and you see so many of their drinking buddies, because that's how they stay functioning, is because they need you to like drink with them. That's how they don't feel like alcoholics, is because you're doing it too, right? Everyone's doing it. Everybody has 3-day deal. And so I live in Austin. So anyhow, like don't give into that peer pressure, because not everyone is going to be happy that you're cutting back, because it means that they don't have you as their drinking buddy. So watch for your peer pressure. Keep busy, like maybe start jogging or pick up hiking, like do something that, you know, is a good type of filling the time. Ask for support, like have an accountability partner, like someone that you know wants to see you do better. Obviously not one of your drinking buddies, most likely. And learn from the past. So if you really think about your drinking habits and what good came from drinking. If there was good, it probably could have come from sober living as well. But so learn from the past. Think of reasons why you would want to give this up. Think of reasons that would motivate you when you are being tempted. And then also, I know from personal experience with people that I've been with in a relationship with, when you stop drinking, your digestion changes. This is all like for the worse in the beginning.
Okay.
Because you're dependent. It's like you stop drinking coffee and you get a headache, so you drink coffee. So when you stop drinking, you feel like you can't sleep. You get night sweats.
Yes.
You get headaches. You feel like you can't go to the bathroom like you used to. You
get fucked up dreams because all your dreams are having dream rebound.
You get super moody. It's what's it called? Withdrawals. You're going through withdrawals. You start getting snappy with your loved ones. You feel edgy. You feel anxiety. Of course, because you're starting to feel all these emotions that you normally numb. And so people
I don't think we're selling it here. We're not selling the not drinking.
Yeah, it sucks, right?
These are all the bad things.
So the thing is like expect that to happen and know I've got to get through this point. Because the thing is people who start on the mission to stop drinking, that's what stops them is they start to feel like crud.
Right.
And so they drink again. And that's the thing. Then they don't realize that it's the alcohol that's making them feel crummy because they don't give themselves enough time to feel good.
Right.
So give yourself enough time and expect that you're going to feel crummy for a little bit. It's just like any good habit that you're doing, whether it's cutting out caffeine or whether it's detoxing, you always go through the withdrawal symptoms, but you feel so much better after. Look at Brad Pitt. Like he looked like crap last year. You see how handsome he looks because he stopped drinking?
We would never say that about you.
He looked like crap last year. I remember thinking like, what the hell happened to him? Last week at the Grammys, I was like, whew, he lost like 10 years because he stopped drinking. He looked so good. So I mean, like, if anything, like giving up alcohol for 30 days, it makes such a difference on your appearance. So anyhow, I don't know if that was a magic trick, but there's some tips if you're trying to cut back on alcohol, or if maybe you don't even really need to cut back, but you just want to cut it out because that it's not benefiting you. So yeah, maybe my most annoying magic trick of all time. But
that was a magic rant, not a trick. But we
really
let it go. I think it's good though. I think it's something you said about being social and having drinking buddies and stuff. I think that that's part of the addiction in itself, is that this is a way we've decided that we're going to let down our inhibitions and bond, and we can't figure out how to do that without the alcohol, or we just haven't taken the time and energy to figure out without the alcohol.
We're not allowing ourselves to be our authentic selves. We think that alcohol is making us authentic.
It's not.
No, sit in on a drunken conversation. It's going nowhere. There's no depth.
In circles about nothing. Yeah. Yes. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm
sorry that I sound judgy. I'm sorry. Go, move on. What's your magic trick?
All right, y'all. We love you. We don't want you to poison yourself or to do it into a place that's harmful. So take any bit of what Jade said there to heart. And also, I just wanted to put a caveat before I get into my magic trick. Brad, if you're listening, Brad Pitt, we don't know if you went to Kim Kardashian's plastic surgeon and that's why you look 10 years younger, or if you stopped drinking. But either way, do you, brother? It's working. Just keep it realish with us and let us know what the real deal was there. We need to know these secrets.
He got a hydrofacial.
Yeah. What's your magic trick, Brad? Okay, so my magic today is coming from Thais Sky, who we had on the show. We loved her so much. We love her so much. She is incredible. Her whole hashtag is Worthy Women Rise. She's just so great. She posted something that said, reparenting ourselves means releasing the expectation that as adults, our parents will validate our feelings. And I felt like this was related a bit to this episode, just in the fact that if you have, an alcoholic or substance abusing parent or any addicts in your early years, especially growing up, maybe, even if you're dealing with that now, this is something that really can speak to all of that, but really can speak to anyone, even if you don't have, a parent that went through substance abuse or anything like that. So she goes on to say, on the journey of healing, many of us may begin to realize that our parents harmed us during childhood in ways they may not have taken credit for. As we process our experience of that pain now, it's understandable why we may seek validation from our parents in the form of apologies and or ownership. After so many years of taking responsibility for things that we now realize was not ours to take responsibility of, it makes sense we want our parents to make amends in some meaningful way, to bear a share of the pain. The desire is valid, however, we must be wary of waiting for other people to change or take ownership or apologize in order to heal and move forward. This is where we are invited to offer ourselves the grace we may or may not get from the others by being tender to our hurt parts. We do not need our parents to acknowledge our pain in order for our pain to be real. I'm going to say that again. We do not need our parents to acknowledge our pain in order for our pain to be real. We do not need their apology in order to move forward. We do not need them to change in order for us to heal. We do not need them to change in order for us to heal.
That's really good.
So major, man.
I don't know why that didn't occur to me before.
Because you're whole story is telling your whole story built from your domestications, from your childhood traumas, for all the years after that you've continued to practice that story and run that background script, has told you that thought that our parents don't have to change in order for us to heal, or that our parents don't have to cop to the, hurt they caused us in order for us to heal. It's not part of the story you've been running. So why would you have that thought? Someone has to place it in you. So thank you, Thais Sky, for doing that for us today.
Yeah, I was thinking of her episode earlier just because it is this episode and her episode. I was really proud of her episode just because I felt like we really covered some important topics, but really proud of this one too. I feel like it was just so heart-centered. So
yes, and rigorously authentic.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, you guys, that was just a reminder. You can love your parents and acknowledge how their behaviors have impacted your health. It's okay if you don't love your parents because of the hurt they caused too. So wherever you're at on your journey, we respect it. We love you. We want you to move forward and be progressive, amazing human beings that are stepping into their highest. So, All right, Magic Mob. Thank you guys also so much for tuning in and taking this journey with us. If this episode held some magic for you, please share it with your friends and family. This would mean so much to us. And don't forget to join us on our Instagram page at The Magic Hour and let us know what your favorite episodes have been so far. We appreciate all your feedback and want to know what's lighting you up. Or go listen to some of our past episodes in the podcast library. Until then, be a light.